to the mayoral debate sponsored by the Daily Item, Lavos, and the Lynn Business Partnership. We would like to thank Lynn Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Patrick Tutwiler, and the school department for allowing us to use Classical High School's auditorium. And we would like to thank Lynn Community Television for recording this debate for broadcast. Our moderator for tonight's debate is my colleague and Item news editor, Gayla Cawley. She is assisted by Lynn Housing Authority and Neighborhood Development Finance Director and 1993 candidate for mayor, Joe Scanlon, and Partnership Chairman, Gordie Hall. Let me now introduce Lynn's 2021 mayoral candidates: City Council President Darren Sear, School Committee Man Jared Nicholson, School Committee Man Michael Saderway. Let's settle in for a fun and informative evening, and I will turn the microphone over to Gayla.
Hi. We're going to start with opening statements. So each candidate will have 3 minutes to deliver an opening statement. Going to start with Darren Sear.
Darren.
Hi, I'm Darren Sear, running for mayor of the city of Lynn. I'm the only candidate that's sitting here with 16 years experience being on light council. I'm the only candidate with 5.5 years experience being a council president. I'm also the only candidate here with experience who worked in the mayor's office from 1997 to the year 2000 for Mayor McManus. I'm the only candidate here sitting here that's got a school built. I'm the only candidate sitting here with the experience to bring us out of receivership 4 years ago to find $9 million so that we could balance our budget under Mayor Judy Flanagan Kennedy and not lay off any employees. And the only candidate sitting there worked with Mayor McGee to borrow $14 million, which we've already paid back over $7.5 million back to the state. I'm the only candidate sitting there who managed to get $28 million into our reserve account in the last 2 years. I'm the only candidate that's got the experience of balancing budgets. I'm the only candidate that's worked with all department heads throughout the city, whether it be in the school department, whether it be in City Hall. I'm the only candidate to work on the streets during snowstorms to get our streets plowed. I'm the only candidate that's pumped out people's cellars during floods. I'm the only candidate who's worked with neighbors and neighborhoods to get parks cleaned up, dumpster days, to get our roads better. I'm the only candidate that has all that experience. I'm asking for you to vote for me for mayor on September 15th. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Saderway. I'm running for mayor for the city of Lynn. 20 years ago, I was in this school on September the 11th, experiencing that tragic event that we can never forget. I sat there with my classmates, the educators, as we witnessed the second plane hit the tower. I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget how that brought everyone in the school close together, everyone in the city close together, and everyone in the country close together. I'm running for mayor because I have those lived experiences and relationships with the people here in our city. It's a very important component. I'm running for mayor with 15 years experience of being a small business owner. I'm running for mayor to bring accessibility back into the city, affordability into the city, activities in public safety. Those are 4 core things that we need in the city for it to be successful. I say it often, and it's unfortunate, but we've been in way too many short-term crises as a city, and we need a long-term plan. And I present that to people over and over again through my website and also through the debates that we've had. It's important to have a candidate for mayor that wants to be a voice for the people. Every resident, every ward, every business. That's how we have to move forward as a city. It's vital. I'm running for mayor because I love my city. This is where I grew up. This is where my family lives, my grandmother, my parents, my aunts and uncles, my cousins. When I say I'm running for mayor for my family, I'm also running for mayor for your family. We can do better. Like Mr. Steer said, just not too long ago, 4 years ago, we had to borrow $14 million to balance two budgets, two fiscal budgets. And we can't keep going into this cycle. We need to get out of it. So I'm running for mayor to be that voice, to bring stability, and to bring my background and experience. You can see the experience of me being on the school committee.
30 seconds.
And the changes we made there. We balanced budgets there too. It's important to bring the experience that I have. I've had budgets at a corporate level, a city level. I can do the job. I appreciate your time. And I look forward to speaking to you more tonight, and I ask for your vote on September 14th. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Daily Item for hosting and to Lynn Community for letting us use this space. My name is Jared Nicholson, and I'm running for mayor to help with the recovery from COVID-19 and to push for growth that benefits the city, that includes all of us. I'm in my third term on the school committee. I'm also a dad to my young son, who's almost 2. I'm a husband to my wife, Catherine, who's a nurse midwife at Mass General. And in my day job, I'm a professor at Northeastern at the law school. I got started in founding a legal aid practice that provides free legal help to low-income entrepreneurs and small businesses in support of community growth. And from the beginning, I saw the importance of the connection between education and economic development, and was elected to the school committee 6 years ago. I'm excited that in this race for mayor, I'm able to draw on the deep experience that I have in education, from my work on the school committee, from my work in higher education, and the deep experience that I have on city issues, like housing and economic development, from my work as a lawyer and a law professor, to be able to step up in this role, in this moment. I bring a fresh perspective from that work as a lawyer and a law professor. I work with other cities on issues like economic development. I work with businesses of all sizes all over the world. And in addition to that fresh perspective, I also bring a record of delivering results right here in Lynn. For example, I started a wrestling team in Lynn, saw experience that was missing from our city's youth, and put together a team to make it happen and make a difference. I also have a record of being there for people when they need it, as someone who's open and accessible and dependable. I've done that time and time again in my work on the school committee with students and teachers and families, and particularly working with families. I speak Spanish, and that has been incredibly helpful in being able to serve our community. I'm excited to have the opportunity to bring that record to City Hall, as well as the vision that we're building together in this campaign for inclusive growth. I look forward to discussing more this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for those opening statements. We're going to start with our first topic, which is housing. So Michael Saderway will be the first to answer this question. Do you think Lynn is meeting its affordable housing needs? And how should the newly approved City Council approved Housing Lynn plan fit into those efforts?
Great question. So I put forward plans that will address the new development here in our city, as well as the existing development here in our city. You can't do one without the other. And when I talk about affordable housing, I'm not just talking about people that are on Section 8 or vouchers, and I'm not just talking about the affordability of housing. Because you can afford a house, but it can be low quality. So we need to be sure that the places that our residents are living in are quality places. It's important. So I put forward plans to address the existing production, which would deal with the Lynn Housing Authority and expanding certain programs. And that includes for the looks and the quality of housing. Lynn Housing Authority has plans where you can get grants for sidings and windows and roofs and whatnot. So we need to expand that to include more. And what happens is there are typically a restricted mortgage that's recorded on these properties, which means that you can't sell it and not have to pay back within a certain period of time. Some of the things that we can add to those things is, hey, we'll expand this program. We'll give you X amount of dollars to do siding to improve the energy costs of the property, but rent can increase for X amount of dollars year over year. Working with private industries, which I've already spoke to about this, I'd like for some of them to offer like relocation agreements within the city, where an employee agrees to stay for a certain period of time, which will save on the cost of having to retrain, for some sort of match to the down payment assistance that the Lynn Housing Authority offers, so we can get more homeowners in the city. We need to enact some of the recommendations from the Housing Production Plan, which I brought forward a resolution to the Lynn School Committee just a few months ago. And I had to do that because there was lack of communication as to what that plan would do, but we knew how important it was to the students that actually attend our schools. So I like the 10% affordability for the new development, which is important. I know there's some back and forth of getting it to 15%, but what they settled on was 10. And again, these are just recommendations to the council in order for them to enact certain policy. I think that AMI is very important, and 30% is something that we do in the industry. I'm a broker and an attorney. So real estate is something that I've been involved with for 15 years when I bought my first multifamily here in the city on Saunders Road. So it's important to, again, address both the existing production that we have and the new production here in the city. We always have to have public benefit on the new development here in the city. We saw a $2.5 million tax break into Caldwell on Monroe Street with absolutely no public benefit to the city. And there was an article in 2018, a letter to the editor by Council President Saderway, where he promised that Michael Proctor would do something big for that community. And we're now 3 years later and nothing's been done. So, we have to hold these developers accountable. We have to look at the ordinances that we're actually putting into law. Like the wage theft ordinance, which is applicable to those that are TIFs, but you'll see that the new developments that are going into production are going through ties agreements. So not all the policies are applicable, so we do need to also create different boards to make sure that the community has a voice in those new developments, and that's vital. So housing is unaffordable here in the city. It's not just, like I said, for those that are in poverty, it's even for those families that are both working full-time jobs. Taxes are going up. It's impacting the community as a whole, and it's becoming a huge concern, especially for seniors as well. So we have to address certain things. I also brought up certain things that we can do here in the city to help relieve the burden on our seniors. I know other states allow for the property taxes to
30 seconds.
To be on hold until either the property is sold or that property owner is deceased and is handling the estate. So those are things that we can bring to the city. Those are things that we have to bring to the city because we can't have this displacement. It's just not fair. And we have to do things in order to address both, again, the new development as well as the existing properties here. And we have to make sure that the quality of living here in the city is high because that's the return on investment that we need. So thank you.
Hi. Jared Nicholson, same question. Each candidate has 5 minutes to get to the question.
Thank you. So for the first part as to whether we're meeting our needs for affordable housing, I would say that no, we are not. And let me explain what I mean by that. We have too many families, too many residents in the city that are struggling to pay for housing because housing costs are so high. Rents are skyrocketing. It's harder than ever to buy a new home. I'm sure many of you have seen it. If not you, then maybe your children, your family that are looking to start out, how hard it is to find, to get that start in the real estate market. And rents are just increasing so much more quickly than people's pay. And so the result of that is that people are really struggling to afford to live in the city. And we can measure that with a statistic that is the number of households that are cost burdened by housing. So that's looking at the percentage of income that they're paying towards housing, towards rent, or if they're owning towards the cost of the home, as a percentage of their overall income. And the federal government has a metric that says about a third of people's income should be going towards housing. When you're paying more than that, you're paying too much. You don't have enough left over for other expenses. And almost half the city is cost burdened because of how much rent has increased. And so this is a top issue. And that's why a couple years ago, this work was started around the Housing Lend Plan. An effort with the Lynn Housing Authority, the Mayor's office, to bring in the Regional Planning Agency to come up with a strategy to address this. So the second part of the question about how Housing Lend fits into all this, Housing Lend is a housing production plan, which is a particular process under the state affordable housing law that comes with certain benefits that the state certifies. The city of Lynn is actually in a position where it wouldn't need to do a housing production plan under state law, but it made the decision to do a housing production plan as a way to come up with a strategy to address the overwhelming rise in housing costs. And so as a result, the Housing Lend Plan is more than just a housing production plan. The recommendations are broader than specifically the strategies to create a certain goal for the production of affordable housing. It includes a lot of great strategies for addressing the issues that Lynn residents are struggling with in housing. Bad conditions in certain parts of the city. Looking for more representation and transparency on city decision making that have to do with these kinds of issues. And so I think the Housing Lend Plan is going to be the starting point for us to address this going forward. I think it's really exciting news that the City Council overwhelmingly passed the Housing Lend Plan, and I think it's a real strong indication that the city has recognized that this is a top issue facing us, and we're now on the same page that we need to go forward. And the Housing Lend Plan is a great starting point for those recommendations. Within the plan itself, the recommendations are prioritized by things that can happen quickly, things that are longer term, things that require help from other levels of government, and things that will require a certain cost. So that work has been started, but that's absolutely going to be something that the next mayor needs to lead on, is to figure out which of these housing strategies to start with and build a coalition to get them done. Because the Housing Lend Plan itself is just recommendations, and they will need to be implemented by the council, by the other appropriate decision-making bodies. And the key to this, that I think is really important to emphasize, is that the Housing Lend Plan recognizes the potential for development. I think all of us do this. People are excited about the potential for development. And what's important is to do it in a way that's thoughtful so that it includes the people that are here now. So that as the city is moving forward and rents are increasing, there's opportunities for the folks that created this opportunity in the first place to afford to stay and live here and benefit from that growth. And that's a key part of the Housing Lend process. It's a range of recommendations from inclusionary zoning to the creation of an affordable housing trust fund
30 seconds.
to the development of a fair housing plan to address discrimination in the real estate market. And the next administration will need to identify those the parts of those plans and put together the team to continue this momentum. For a long time, the city was without a full-time professional planning department. And that's something that we have now that we need to take full advantage of. They will be key in leading that process. The other thing that's going to need to happen is that the housing land plan will need to be integrated into the overall plan for the city. Thank you.
Darren's here, same question, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Does Lynn do enough for its affordable housing? We do more than any other surrounding community. And that's the problem. That's why there's a need for affordable housing, because people from other communities are coming into Lynn. The state says that you need to have 11% of your housing should be for affordable housing. Well, 14% of it in Lynn is for affordable housing. No other community around us is even close to that. 38% of households receive some kind of subsidy for housing in Lynn. It's unfortunate that the federal government and the state don't have enough programs to support affordable housing. The housing production plan, to me, is smoke and mirrors, to be honest with you. It either doesn't go far enough, because the average family in Lynn only makes $45,000 a year. That's the average family of 4. In order to pay for your housing costs, you need to make $60,000 a year. We as a city, we are obligated to try to help these people, whether it's a single parent household or whether it's a 2-parent household, to help them. But creating inclusionary zoning and forcing developers with new development to provide 10% is not going to take care of the problem, because developers aren't going to come here. And when you take a look at, and I'm going to use Procopio as a perfect example, because it was just said that the city didn't benefit from giving him a $2.5 million tax break. We absolutely did. That piece of property was going to generate $30,000 in taxes, which over a 7-year period would have been roughly around $250,000 worth of revenue coming into the city. We're talking about $7 million worth of revenue coming in taxes through that development. $1 million alone was taken out for the building permit. When a developer goes and applies for a loan at a bank, and the bank looks at it and says 10% of your units are going to be considered to be affordable, and the AMI is between 50 and 60%, when the formula in the Boston area, and it's not fair to Lynn, is actually 80%. So why would any developer in their right mind, when they're losing 50 to 60% of the rent for those apartments, develop, when you're talking about, if you do 10% at the Procopio building, that's 20 units. It's upwards of over $20,000 a month loss, multiplied times 12. And in the housing production plan, what it calls for is a 30-year deed restriction. So that would have to be for 30 years. Affordable housing should be for our older citizens who live here. There are 6,000 seniors that live in the city of Lynn that need housing. And at least a third of them own homes. So if we could provide some kind of housing, affordable housing for them, whether it be that they're able to live in an apartment for nothing, in turn what they do is they give back the house to us so that we can get a family that would need it into that house at a lower rate. When you talk about taxes, we're a city of services. We provide services, and we need those taxes for those services. When people say that they're going to move out of Lynn into another community because it's either lower rent or lower taxes, I said, where are you going to go? And they say New Hampshire or Maine or out in the western part of the state. Well, you have to send your kid five cities over to go to school. They don't pick up trash. You have to bring your trash to the dump on the weekends. We need police or a fire department to come.
30 seconds.
It's usually a volunteer fire department. And they may be coming from another city or town, the same thing when police are coming. We can come up with a real plan that everybody will benefit, because under the housing production plan, when you give tax breaks, you know who pays for that? The taxpayers, the homeowner. We pay enough in taxes right now. We have $500 million worth of infrastructure that has to be taken care of in the city, and that includes 14 schools that have to be built. Thank you.
Does anybody have a rebuttal, or are we ready to move on to the next question?
You can go first.
Michael?
I just want to, and I believe those that are watching as well would want specifics as to how everyone up here will address the rising rents. Aside from just a synopsis of what the housing production plan says. So one of the things I would ask my fellow members that are running for mayor is there any specific plan you have in mind? Like I brought up with expanding the housing authority's programs to include to increase the quality of living for our residents, as well as the affordability to get them to home ownerships. What specific plan, aside from just regurgitating what the housing production plan says, or that it's just bad? I think that it's only right for those that are watching, and those that are in the community can hear something concrete.
Jared?
Thank you. The housing production plan was just approved by the Lynn City Council. It was the result of a 2-year process with input from stakeholders, from renters to activists to city departments to developers. To say that the next mayor is going to be leading and implementing that plan is not to regurgitate it, but to point out that this is a great jumping off point for the city. Inclusionary zoning ordinance is absolutely a specific recommendation that I think is one of the headline recommendations of the Housing Link Plan. The equity impact assessments, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, looking at the Fair Housing Plan, inviting more community development corporations to participate in the process. Those are all specific recommendations. And responding to Councilor Sears' discussion of inclusionary zoning, it's just not true that it's going to block development. The whole idea with inclusionary zoning is to say, given that where development is coming, how can we make it benefit the city? And we know that because cities around the state do it. And it's not just Boston and Cambridge, it's also Chelsea and Everett and Quincy and Brockton and Lowell. The list goes on and on. And it's because people have realized that it would be great if the federal government had more money for us to address this issue. And maybe one day that will happen. But in the meantime, the way to feasibly create opportunities for affordable housing is to tap into the development that's happening and set it up in a way that creates these opportunities. And of course, you need to get the financials right. Because if you're going to say 10% of a new project is going to be affordable, and the numbers don't work out so people don't build a project, well, 10% of no new units is no affordable housing units. But you need to get involved in those numbers. You need to work with professional planners to do that, and that's how we create opportunities for affordable housing.
Darren, do you want to respond to that?
That's just not true, Jared, at all. It's not working in most communities. And that's why people are coming to Lynn. What it's doing, it's actually driving rents up. Inclusionary zoning, when you try to get a developer and you make it mandatory for them to have to do that, I'm telling you right now, they're not going to come. I've met with hundreds of developers. How many developers have you met with? There were no developers that were involved in the housing production plan. Less than 600 people participated in it. That's less than 0.9% of the population. We're a city of 100,000 people. I wasn't asked to participate in it. When I asked for the council to participate in it, the door was slammed in our face. We were asked, you can come to any public meeting that you want and participate that way. That's unfair to us. We're the body that has to accept it and not accept it. But that being said, as I said earlier, that I have met with hundreds of developers. And every single one of them say absolutely, if you would have us to have to include affordable housing, we're just not gonna come. We'll go to other communities. Perfect example is, there was a developer that wanted to put a $130 million development in the downtown area.
30 seconds.
And he was asked to provide 10% affordable housing. This is a national company. They were asking for a tax break for 15 years, which the mayor was going to go along with. But it wasn't up to the mayor, it's up to the council to give that. They came back to us and said they couldn't do it. They tried to do 5%, and they still couldn't do it, even if we gave them a 15-year tax incentive to do it. It just isn't going to work.
Okay, we all set? The next topic is education. Jared Nicholson is going first with this question. Lynn is a majority-minority school district. How do we build a school system that works for everybody? 5 minutes.
Thank you for the question. So, starting from the idea that Lynn is a minority school district, it has been for a while, and certainly the numbers in the school system has a very large percentage of students of color relative to the city as a whole, and of course relative to the staff as well. And this is something that I think is the part of that strategy to make the school district reflect the district it's serving. So that starts with the educators, the staff. And this has been a priority of the school committee. It's been a priority of Dr. Tutwiler. I think he has a plan in place that we're starting to implement that I think is the right way to go. Part of that is around the recruitment of teachers of color and making changes in the recruitment process to reach people. And it's also about the retention of educators of color. If you increase retention over time, then over time you improve the diversity of our workforce. I think we've made a lot of progress in building a pipeline for Lynn students to come back and become teachers in Lynn public schools, which is absolutely going to improve the diversity of the Lynn public schools workforce, because that's the ultimate goal, is to have the diversity of the school population reflected in the diversity of our educator population. And we've made strides building those partnerships with North Shore Community College, with Salem State, to create those kinds of pipelines. Another issue that comes to mind in important next steps for the school district is the needs of our English learner population. The dropout rate for English learners is too high. It's high relative to the rest of the state. I think it was 13.7% in 2019, and it's an area of improvement for the district. The good news is that we have been making real investments in that area, hiring professionals to work with the English learner population, creating tailored programs to be able to support their learning needs, and creating custom strategies for those learners, because people that arrive at Lynn Public Schools are arriving at different points in their education. And some students have a really long way to go to be able to see a path for them that would make them, keep them in school and encourage them to graduate. And that's something that I think we've made great strides in. And it's something that I'm tremendously proud of. I think the city is tremendously proud of in public schools. It's sort of the basic premise of public schools, where you can't see that anywhere better than the city of Lynn, where public schools are open to everybody, no matter what. And I'm really proud of that. I think it's something that the district is really proud of. And what that means is that we have to, therefore, be able to grow and adapt to our students' needs. And that English learner population is one of those particular needs. Another area of growth for that student population is the work that we're doing in bilingual education. We have a couple of pilot programs now at the elementary level that is based on data that we've seen from other districts, other parts of the country about the value, particularly in those early years of bilingual education, for English learners and for English-speaking students who are learning a second language. And that's something I'm excited about and would have the potential to grow as well. And then the other investments that we're making, and this has been helped tremendously by the Student Opportunity Act, is investing in hiring to meet students' needs outside the classroom. So social workers, counselors, parent liaisons, those hires that we knew we needed to make if we were going to be able to get the ratios that we thought were appropriate for our students' needs of professionals to students with those needs. But we were not able to do it for so many years because our schools were underfunded. And with the Student Opportunity Act, this is the first year that we've been implementing really those funds, because they were delayed a little bit by the pandemic. We've been able to make those hires and growing that workforce that are working with those populations, helping students meet those needs outside the classroom. And I think that momentum needs to be continued. And it's important to remember that the mayor is the chair of the school committee. The school department is almost half the city's budget. And so it's really important to have the mayor in the corner office with that experience. Thank you.
I'm going to move on to Darren Sear. Same question, 5 minutes.
Thank you. The only way we're going to break the cycle of poverty and Lynn is through education. We have to build state-of-the-art schools. We have a real problem in the city, as I stated a few minutes ago, that we have 28 schools. 14 of them are over 120 years old. This building was built 25 years ago. It's falling apart already. We have to do a better job managing our schools, and we have to also do a better job managing our education in the city. Our teachers are the 4th lowest paid in the city. Lawrence, Chelsea, and Springfield are the 3 other cities that are ahead of us in lowest pay. Over 120 plus teachers left the school district last year. We have to replace them. When we go to replace them, we should make it so that they're EL teachers, bilingual, instead of forcing the teachers that are already there to do that and take on that burden. We have to build unbelievably high technical science, math, schools, and we have to start in our elementary schools. We have to replace like 8 or 9 of them. And we have to really come up with an innovative way of doing that. 17% of our population is in our school system. That's the highest in the state. When kids leave in June and come back in September, on average, there's over 500 more kids in the school population. We do have a high dropout rate. We have to use our technical school and give kids a chance so that they have to know that they don't have to go to college to succeed, that they can go and learn a trade, and we can start them earlier in the 7th grade rather than waiting for them to get into technical school. Marshall Middle School, which is a $100 million school, it's used as an example for other communities to see what the possibilities are. We're not even using that as an example for ourselves, and we should be. Every single child, no matter what their age is, deserves a high quality education. And unfortunately, that's not happening right now. Our school budget for this year is over $160 million. We're mandated by the state what we have to put into our school system. And we bring in another $40 to $50 million a year in grants. Our grant writers are unbelievable. And I'm not on the school committee, I'm not knocking the school committee when I say this, but what's the pay of our facilitators that are here and our teachers? Our teachers are the ones that are in the room every day with the students. And those classrooms are so overburdened by the population that if you go down to English, we have to build portable classrooms. Kids are learning out in the parking lot now. That's unfair. What I'm proposing is that we build elementary schools, and we build one at a time with 4 schools in each school, with gyms, cafeterias, and libraries. No elementary school in the city has an actual cafeteria, gym, or library in it. We could build a $100 million grammar school where kids would actually really benefit from it. The mayor is chairman of the school committee. And as council president, I know everything that's going on all the time in the city and with the council. And I communicate every single day with my councilors and with city departments. And if I'm the mayor, I'll communicate every single day with school committee members.
30 seconds.
And with teachers and department heads. And I'll walk through schools to see what's going on. And I'll get to know all my teachers and all my students. We can do a lot better job than we've been doing. And as mayor, I will do that. Thank you.
Moving on to Michael Saderway, same question, 5 minutes.
Thank you. According to the Sharing Collaborative, 87% of our youth are considered to be middle to high risk in joining a gang or doing risky behavior. And that's mainly because our economically disadvantaged population here in the city is about double the state average. It's also because the poverty rate is about double the state average. And the unemployment rate in our city is about 4% more so than the state average. So we know that it's a struggle for a lot of these students that go to our schools because of these outside factors. How can you learn if you're hungry? How can you learn if you're worried about where you're going to sleep at night? By the time I was 11 years old, we moved 7 times here in the city. I went to 7 different public schools here in the city. I know what housing instability is. I know what poverty is. I lived it. I can relate to these students. It's important to realize that you can't make change if you don't speak up. When I got on the school committee 4 years ago, I spoke up. I wanted the school committee members to be involved in certain things, and it was important. So I volunteered to be on the interview committees. And I've been serving on interview committees since then. Not all school committee members do that. Mr. Nicholson does not serve on the interview committees. And that is a huge impact as to who the district hires. We're talking about a reflection as to the student body, so our students are able to relate to those that are educating them. And that's important. During my time here in the Lynn Public Schools, I had 2 black female teachers. And that's it. It's important to be a part of these interview committees so you can have a voice and you can reflect as to what you're hoping the district looks like. It's vital. Just this last year, we hired 5 new principals, which is a large number. And if you look at the diversity as to our leadership now here in the public schools, you're going to see a change. These people weren't hired because of the color of their skin or the language that they spoke. It was because they were the most qualified people. And that's important. There was this unspoken secret for years here in the district that a lot of positions were posted for people in mind, not for purpose. And I fought back. There was one position that the former superintendent tried to fill with someone that I did not believe fit the criteria that we needed for that position. And I got a lot of pushback. But that's fine. You're going to get that when you're trying to do what's right. That person that we pushed and fought to be the supervisor of attendance is still there today. It's things like that that separate me from those that are running for mayor today. My time, I need to give it in order to make the change here in the district. And we're talking about a minority majority. I know how that feels. Again, being a lawyer in this state is a hard thing to do because not a lot of them look like me. So judges expect someone completely different. So I know how that feels. We have to do better for our students. We have to do better for our educators. And if you look at my past 4 years as chair of the negotiation subcommittee, you'll see that we brought extra time for our teachers to do PD, which is important. So they can learn professional development, so they can collaborate with each other. We looked at the chart to see salaries and talked about that as well. Teachers have to work 5 times harder here in this district than the neighboring districts. Our fire and police have to work 5 times harder. Our small businesses do as well. It's tough in the city, and we're talking about
30 seconds.
you know, all these things, but if it wasn't for these continuous short-term crises that we've seen our city in for a long period of time, we wouldn't have to sell off all these public property that we could have used for space for our students. It's vital that we have someone with a long-term vision, someone with experience and background in the city, and that's what I'm offering. Thank you.
Jared, do you want to respond to that? Each rebuttal is 2 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, so I want to respond to something that Councilor Sear had mentioned about the Marshall and the vocational opportunities that are Marshall. I absolutely agree that that is important, and we are in fact doing that in other middle schools as well. So the FECO Leary, we've created partnerships with Lynn Tech and created vocational opportunities at the FECO Leary, which I think is a great opportunity for the city. And the other thing that we're doing in the vocational space that I think is really important and worth building on is something we call the After Dark program. So it's students from around the district, high school students, so there could be an English classical FECO, that are able to learn job skills after school using the facilities at Tech. And it has been supported by state grants, but it was something we actually started on our own in the district even before the state grants became available. And those are the kinds of ideas and partnerships that we need to continue to build on. The vocational pathways absolutely are a key priority for the city. Finding and supporting pathways for students to college and jobs has been a top priority of mine since I've been on the committee, and it's going to continue to be a priority for the city. You know, the city has tremendous workforce development needs because at the same time we're talking about students struggling to find those pathways to good paying jobs. There are employers in the city that are struggling to hire, and we need to continue to leverage the jewel that we have at Lynn Tech. To take that planning, spread it across the city, to identify those pathways and create supported ways to get into those high-paying jobs. I think it's an important priority. Thank you.
Just respond.
Michael,
Thank you.
2 minutes.
And again, just to continue to respond to Mr. Sear, about half of the city budget goes to the schools. That's a large amount of money. And we need to make sure that we're being good stewards of that. And you can see, based off of the hiring trend in our district, that we're addressing all these things. It's vital. It's important. So when we're talking about how important education is in the city, it's vital. Education is really going to change the future of a lot of our kids, change my future. It's vital to have our students either career ready or college ready, nothing else. And with the current makeup of employers here in the city, about 2,000 businesses are in the city that employ about 25,000 people. Of those positions, about 10,000 are Lynn residents. But of those positions, 13,000 of them pay less than $3,333 a month. It's very difficult to live off of those wages. So we have to bring new employers here into the city. It's vital. But how are we going to do that if we can't show them that we'll meet the needs that they'll have? My plan is to make sure that our residents, both children and adults, are ready for middle skilled employment. They have over 400,000 jobs every single year. And they pay over $70,000 a year. We can get our communities out of poverty and into good paying jobs if we offer the educational tools that we need. So yes, address the children, address our schools, but also address our adult population, because we have the ability to do so with the buildings that we have here.
Time.
Thank you.
Darren, do you want to respond to either of those?
Thank you.
2 minutes.
So I use Marshall as an example. There are kids that are going into the 6th grade, and by the time they're graduating, they actually know what they want to do for a career because of the opportunities that are there in that school, whether it be the wood shop, whether it be one of the music rooms, whether it be the media room or the science lab. They're given so many opportunities in that building. The amount of kids that go there, it's only roughly around 1,400. The school itself is already overburdened. It was built for 1,200 kids when it was built several years ago. But every single child, as I said, deserves the same opportunity. No matter whether you live in Ward 1, Pine Hill, or you live on the beach, or you live in the Highlands. Every single child deserves the same opportunity, and we have to give them that opportunity. Teacher in Salem makes $97,000 a year on average. Teacher in Lynn makes less than $80,000. Teacher in Swampscott makes more. So if we want to diversify our teachers, we got to do a better job when we're paying them because they're going to other communities. That's what's going to attract teachers to come here into the city. We do have a chance and an opportunity. The next several years are going to define the direction our city goes in. And what I mean by that is development and schools. I said earlier, the only way to stop the cycle of poverty is through education. And it may take an entire generation to do that. And I do have the vision, the knowledge, and the expertise to do that. Thank you.
Michael, 2 minutes.
I do want to address something. So my daughter was a bigger. She's in the 8th grade. She didn't have the wood shop. She didn't have all those great amenities that Marshall has. That's what we had to do with the overcrowding. And the issue we have, okay, is the long-term mismanagement that we've had in our city. So it's great to say, oh, we should have this, that, and the other thing, but who was managing the money during that period of time? We had to borrow $14 million from the state. We were on the brink of receivership. So in hindsight, yeah, it'd be great if we had a new school and extra money to do that and the other thing. We have to reflect and then create a long-term plan, which is vital. And we have to have fresh eyes doing that. It's vital. So yes, my daughter's missing out on a library in Pickering. But guess what? There was a library 2 doors down. We sold it. I used to volunteer there. I was a librarian. So when they went around saying, we're going to build a new Pickering because we need a library, go look at Marshall's library, you don't think people had that fresh in their mind? That we used to have one right there? It's stuff like this that is important, and that's why transparency and open communication is vital in our city. It's needed. So we have to get past this
30 seconds.
this mentality. We were on the brink of receivership. We borrowed $14 million, and we still have to pay it back. Marshall is a great school, but Breeden Pickering had to get rid of these extracurricular or other types of classrooms in order to put general ed classrooms in there. That's impacting our students. And we have the Discovery Program at Lentec for the 8th grade to provide some of these things that Marshall provides their school. We had to be creative to do that. Thank you.
Darren, do you want to respond to that?
Please.
2 minutes.
Thank you. So, yes, we managed to get ourselves out of receivership. That's because of good management. We have $28 million in our reserve account in the last year and a half. That's good management. I worked on trying to get a new picker and bill. I didn't see any of the other two candidates standing on the front lines with me trying to get that done. Mismanagement? Everybody has to play a role in that in this city, whether you're on the school committee or you're on the council or you're the mayor. We all have to assume responsibility for that money. Every single one of us. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, but you did tonight, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Jared, 2 minutes.
Thank you. The Council Chair, the issue is not that the blame for mismanagement isn't shared. It's the contrast when we start off the night talking about how the only candidate that has experience with the positives.
Absolutely.
If you're going to share the blame for when things go poorly, you should share the credit for when things
And I
go well.
will assume the responsibility.
Absolutely, the need for new schools is one of the top priorities for the city. And I just want to talk a little bit about how we're going to get there. We talked earlier about the Student Opportunity Act and how that's allowed us to make investments in growing our workforce, meeting the needs of students. It's going to allow us to make investments in retention. Teacher compensation absolutely is an important part of that. But that was an effort that took years, organizing, building coalitions, and the mayor's going to be a part of that. The mayor has been a part of that in the current Student Opportunity Act, and the mayor will be a part of future efforts. We need a similar movement to address school construction. Student Opportunity Act was a huge success. That addressed our operating budget, the annual cost of staff salaries. We need the same push for educational equity for our capital budget, our school buildings. And that's going to require a coalition, working with other gateway cities, building a team. The mayor of Lynn should be an important leader in that movement, and that's something that I'd be really excited to work on. I've already started to work on it, supported legislation that our state delegation filed to reform the school construction formula. Had an op-ed in Commonwealth Magazine this spring about that legislation. It's going to be attainable, particularly with the infrastructure funds that are coming our way, but we need someone to keep pushing that fight if we're going to give our kids the schools that they deserve. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the next topic, which is public safety. Darren Sear, this question goes to you. Police reform has begun in Lynn with body cameras and the unarmed crisis response team adopted. What should the next steps be? You have 5 minutes.
So the next step should be to hire more police officers. We don't have enough, a complement of police officers should be over 200. We have roughly around 170. We have to invest more money in training for police officers. So when there's a call that comes into the police station through 911, whether it be a medical emergency or that it's a emergency that a citizen would need assistance because they're being assaulted, or there's a break-in or anything like that, police officer and firefighter don't have any idea what they're coming into. We do have crisis teams that are affiliated with the police department, but we do have to do a better job at training them and provide more money so that they are a 24-hour service, because right now they're only there during the day shift. We have 3 shifts that are going 7 days a week. I also think when we're talking about development, that we have to talk about a leakage proponent for building police substations throughout the city and new firehouses in the city. We have roughly about 160 firefighters. The belief is we should have around 180. We just brought several new firefighters into Lynn in the last Tuesday. They were sworn in. We've also brought in 27 new police officers. But the amount of police officers that are retiring, the same with the firefighters, we're not bringing new firefighters and police firefighters up into the system as quickly as they're leaving. So we have to do a better job with creating better emergency facilities. I think the cameras are a step in the right direction. I know that we have first responders that are trained with drugs, addiction, mental health issues, whether or not the public feels as though they're doing a good enough job there. I disagree. I know that in the community right now, there's a belief for an unarmed response team. I don't think we should have an unarmed response team, especially in a city like Lynn, where you have 100,000 people. That's fine. You can disagree with me. But I don't believe that we should leave our emergency responders unprotected when they respond to no matter what the issue may be. None of them have any idea what they're walking into. Thank you.
Moving on to Michael Saderway, same question, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Public safety is one of the platforms that my campaign revolves on. Accessibility, affordability, activities, public safety. Public safety has to be public facing. It's vital. I applaud the work that was done by the mayor in the racial justice group to bring body cameras and to fight for the unarmed crisis team. And I'm not one to be shy about my history in my life, and you hear me speak about my upbringing pretty often because it's relatable. And it's not just me that's going through this. My mom had mental health issues as well as drug addiction. She died of lung cancer last year. But about 10 years ago, she had a breakdown, mental breakdown, and I wasn't home. And she started to self-harm and cut herself. And my sister didn't know what to do, so she called the police. And the police were at the house, and I came home and noticed 2 police cars, and I wondered what was going on in my house. So I walked in, and I saw them ready to go in with their guns drawn. Because someone said someone had a weapon. It's my mother. I begged them not to go in and let me speak to my mom. 5 minutes later, the issue was resolved. My mom was having a breakdown because there was a disagreement with my sister as to doing something for my niece. And my mom had a mental health issue. She had someone that would speak to her at her level and diffuse the situation. So when we talk about these things, I can tell you a story because I lived it. It's vital that we understand that, yeah, we have about 170 police officers, and we need to have a fully functional police department. It's vital. Of those police officers, about 78 of those were sworn in under Mayor McGee's term. And that was to replace those that are retired or resigned. So we have a young police force. And the chief is going to have the ability to mold these officers into the good ones we talk about all the time. It's vital. So when we talk about professional development for our teachers, the same has to be for our police officers. They have mental health resources. They have other programs where they can learn about their community that they're walking in. It's important. Our firefighters, we need 200 of them. We're building these 10-story buildings with outdated infrastructure in our public safety from the 2000s. How do we expect certain things to work when we never had to have test them that way before? And we're talking about opening stations. What about the ones we closed that are just sitting there on Linfield Street? I can name a few others. Easton Ave? Come on. We're bringing senior housing to Linfield Street, where Union Hospital used to be, which is going to bring a large population of the elderly there. I'm proposing staffing that Linfield location with a full-time EMT, because a lot of these seniors, which are about 20% of our population, we're talking about being a young city, but we also have a 20% population of over 60 years old. When they have an emergency, it's pretty severe. We need to get them to an emergency room. And when we have October in Salem, it's going to be impossible to get there. We have to, these are things that I'm talking about. It's called planning. And why aren't more people talking about it? So where are they going to go? Beverly, Melrose, Wakefield. So we need to be smart. We need to hold the developers accountable, because guess what? If my house is on fire off of Linfield Street, and there's a fire at the Caldwell building where they got a $2.5 million tax break, guess what? They have to go to both. So why not participate in funding these things? So it's common sense. $2.5 million tax break is what people are calling it. No, they're taking away from the community. Let's call it what it is. So yes, we need to fully staff our police. We need to fully staff our fire. And we need to look at public safety as something that is required in our city. It's vital for us to be safe here. It's vital. Thank you.
Jared Nicholson, same question, 5 minutes.
Could you repeat that question?
Sure. Police reform has begun in Lynn with body cameras and the unarmed crisis response team adopted. What should the next steps be?
Great, thank you. So I absolutely support the work of the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition and work the mayor's office and the Lynn Police Department on this. Body cameras were a great first step. I do support the unarmed crisis response team. I think it's an innovative idea. It's a new idea. So the next step is going to be continuing to understand how it's going to work. It needs to be implemented again. And the important thing to understand is that this is not meant to replace the police for dangerous situations. It's a complement to the services that the city offers for people in a crisis. And this is something that the community has asked for. That people who have been in these situations, who for good reasons have had negative interactions, for good reasons because they've had negative interactions, want an alternative that's being asked from the community, and this is leadership to work with the stakeholders to provide that alternative. And the stakeholders includes the police. This is done in collaboration with the Lynn Police Department. We have precedent for this kind of work right here in our own city with the behavioral health unit of the Lynn Police Department. And the unarmed crisis response team of the alert, the acronym that they've been using, is a way to build on that momentum and say, you know what, there's a lot of different skills that we need in these different situations. One of the key skills is working with people in a crisis. Is being there for people who are having mental health issues. This is a way that other cities have figured out how to identify those people and get them involved in the right moments with the right support. There's precedent in other cities on the West Coast. And the next step is to learn about how to actualize that, because there are questions. Certainly there are questions. You absolutely have to keep people safe. And you have to come up with a protocol so that people can feel confident and supported to go into those situations and use the training that they have. I think it's particularly important in a city like Lynn, which has a large immigrant population and therefore have questions about what their relationship with law enforcement looks like because of understandable fears about their immigration status. And the city is better off when those folks can trust our city government. And that includes, in this situation, having an alternative to call when there's an issue. And this is part of the overall work we're doing. There's also continued work with the Lynn Police Department, absolutely getting to appropriate staffing levels. Continued training for the Lynn Police. You know, the Unarmed Crisis Response Team, I think, is a great addition. But all police officers could find themselves in situations where they need to be able to work with people who are in crisis. And there are Lynn Police officers who have gone through those trainings. And the Lynn Police is working on getting more of their officers trained. And that's something we can continue to build on as a city. Another key step in all this, and thinking about what the next steps are for the implementation, is bringing stakeholders together. So absolutely, our first responders, police, fire, the folks that are already working on this. You know, we were talking about public safety. You want to be able to hear the voices of victims and survivors and people who have participated in the criminal justice system. These are tough issues. They require conversations, and you know, I think we have some progress there with the work that the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition has been doing and working with the mayor's office on the unarmed crisis response team as a great example. Another important area for collaboration that's related to this conversation is just generally on the provision of mental health services in the city. And coordinate, because with coordination, we can put together the right team to be able to reach people, to provide the service, to identify and provide the services that they need, because we know there's a really high correlation with untreated mental health issues and addiction and homelessness, and coordination is a huge part of that. And that's something that the Lynn Police Department would like to be a part of, because they work with these folks as well that are having these that have these needs, and oftentimes are the ones that get called in the hardest moments. So I think the coordination around particular issues, one issue that I think is important is around being able to recruit and retain culturally competent providers to be able to reach our diverse population. And that's something that can be a struggle. And that I think that this is a great opportunity for Lynn showing leadership on a difficult issue, and one I would be excited to continue to build momentum on as mayor. Thank you.
Do you want to offer a vote, Michael? 2 minutes.
Thank you. And if we got a really good mechanism that unfortunately came into play due to the response to COVID-19, and that's reaching many of the unreached populations that we didn't have the opportunity to do so beforehand. We have to utilize this tool that we helped build with Lynn Community Health Center and other stakeholders to also reach those that are suffering with mental health and drug addiction. We have to get rid of the stigma that's around these two things, and we have to talk about it more often. But a lot of people suffer from it, and they suffer alone, and they're put in these situations where they feel as though there's no one there. So yes, we have over 300 nonprofits here in the city that do a lot of good work. I'm on the board for the Haven Project, and we work with 18 to 24-year-olds that are dealing with mental health or addiction. And we house them, not for them to learn how to be homeless, but for them to learn how to be a productive person in the community. And that's what we all want. It's vital. So we give them job training, we help them with resumes, we do a lot of different things. It's vital to utilize the tools that we have here in our city, because that's going to bring the success that we need. I witnessed an amazing experience with Officer Mike Conroy maybe 6 or 7 years ago off of Walnut Street in front of the park there, where he was in a difficult situation with someone that was high, that was abusing his girlfriend. And the way he handled that situation, I'll talk about over and over again, because there are good officers out there that want to do the right thing, that care. So we can't forget about those people. Thank you.
Darren, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So, yes, our nonprofit groups that service people with addiction or mental health problems, they're the ones that should be responding to their patients. If the police have to respond, it's usually because a person is out of control. And that's unbelievable, Mike, that you were able to get there and help your mom. I commend you for that. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And what I'm fearful of, to be perfectly honest with you, is that the moment that one of these police officers is either hurt or killed in the line of duty because they're responding to one of these calls, or one of these unarmed response people are responding to one of these calls, what do we do at that point?
You talking about the police officer?
I'm talking about when an unresponse team with no weapon shows up and they're trying to stop a person from doing something, hurting another person, hurting themselves, or hurting the person that's there, and they wind up actually killing someone. So, I mean, I'm just concerned for the safety of the people that are responding. When the 911 call comes in, the operator on the line is the one that's going to make that determination.
30 seconds.
Michael, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So just like when you're at a nightclub and there's a fight, The bouncer doesn't have a gun, right? The bouncer is trained to go and to defuse the situation, right?
It's a little different.
No, it's not. So these people are going to be trained in these particular things. It only makes sense. We're not just going to send rookies that have no medical or background experience to do this job. There's going to be job qualifications that are very important for these people to meet. So there's a risk in everything, but these people are trained in these situations. So if at a point in time they get to a situation that they can't handle, that's when they call in the police. That's what is discussed over and over again through the different meetings that they've had throughout the city about this particular team. So if you had this specific concern, it would have been best to reach out to the group of people that are working on it, and they would have explained this part to you, which is that their people will be trained in order to handle these particular situations, because it's vital. It's hugely important. But we know that there's an issue here in the city, right, with drugs and mental health, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do we address it? What we've been doing is not been working, right? I've been here 37 years. There's always been an issue with drugs and mental health. We have to do something
30
different.
seconds.
It has been working. And I have reached out to the police, and they are concerned about the safety of people that are responding. And it's a completely different issue when you have a barroom fight and you have a person that is out of control and no one's able to handle it. Words aren't always going to be what's going to take care of that problem. And usually by the time the police are called, it's because the person is out of control. I mean, how many people in the audience have responded to one of these calls? How did they know? They were only going by what other people are saying.
I know because I have family members.
I've experienced it myself, and I've seen it. I just had to take one of my brother-in-laws to the hospital this past week because of mental illness. So I do understand it, but I'm fearful for the person who's showing up, because at the point that the police are being called, 911, it's because there's a problem. And I'm afraid that the responder could either get hurt or, God forbid, killed.
I'm gonna go over to Jared. 2 minutes.
Thank you. This is a difficult issue. This is a new solution. There's absolutely going to be questions that we need to think through.
2 minutes.
But one of the things we can't take as a given is how people feel when they call 911. Particularly people who have had negative experiences. So maybe in this moment, people are calling 911 when it's too late, you need to have a police officer. Maybe that's happening in some situations, and you have protocols to identify those situations and make sure people are safe. But we're imagining a world in which there's another option. Someone knows they can call someone and get an unarmed crisis responder who has the training. And that's what people are asking for, the people that have been doing this work. And we know that it works because we've seen it work in other cities, in other communities. We can't be afraid to try new things. Safety is a top priority, and we're going to be safe. We're going to do this in collaboration with the Lynn Police Department. We're going to do this understanding how other communities have made it work. It's going to be on a pilot basis, and as mayor, we'll work through these questions together to give this option to folks who are asking for it to address this issue in our city. Thank you.
Michael, 2 minutes.
Thank you. And this is just the beginning part of it. So if someone's having some sort of mental crisis and they're deemed to be a danger to themselves, it's going to get to the point where they're going to have to be Section 35. And that means the court's going to get involved and the doctor will evaluate the situation. I'm not sure if that's something that you went through with your brother-in-law. But as a lawyer that actually practices in court and understands all of these things, it's important to have that type of insight. Because guess what? When someone is going through that mental crisis, It's not just, okay, here, we calmed you down, now we're just gonna move on. There needs to be a connection to resources, so that doesn't happen again. We're talking about sending people out, whether police or the alert team, and that obviously is a cost to the city. If we can get these people the help that they need, then that's going to be a cost savings to the city as well. There's medication that can trigger these things. There could be episodes that could be triggering these things. We have to figure out what that is and give them the services that they need. And it sounds like it's a simple thing, but it's going to take work. My mom used and had mental health issues untreated for a long period of time. It wasn't until the last 12 years of her life that she was able to live. She canceled me at my wedding. She got to see all of her grandchildren be born and have a vital role in their lives. And that's what a lot of these people want. But you have to get the help. Thank you.
Can I just respond to
That's great, Mike. It's brilliant. And 99% of the time, that's okay, it will work. It's the 1% that I'm worried about. And I get how you do the training and all of that. And our police officers are trained right now for that. I know that a lot of people don't agree with that, but they are. But, it's the 1% I'm worried about.
We're going to have, Jared, do you want to have a final rebuttal for this question?
Sure.
2 minutes?
I think that the scenario where we send an alert team, the unarmed crisis response team, and then there is danger, that's a scenario we need to work through. That 1% is a risk for a situation. It's a risk that exists in the world. We're providing mental health services. People have training to diffuse, to de-escalate, and we've seen this work in other communities that have been able to answer those questions, and we can work through them here and there. And again, we do have the example within the police department of the behavioral health unit. And that's something that we can build on and build up the team, because I think it's an opportunity for progress. It's been a top request from the community members working on this issue, and there's a way forward for us to make it happen.
We're actually going to move on to the next topic, infrastructure. Michael Saderway, this question goes to you. When you drive around Lynn, what is the biggest infrastructure need you see and how would you address it? 5 minutes.
That's a tricky question. I see a lot of things that we have issues with, but again, the ones that impact people on a day-to-day basis is obviously potholes and the condition of our roads. We have to do a lot of things, and I know we have a lot of money coming in that can address some of the roads that we have to make them drivable. I know that we're working on the comments to have the plan come into play on how it's going to look with a bike lane and a bus lane. Right now it doesn't make sense, but they're saying that it's gonna. And then obviously we have issues. Infrastructure is a huge word, but that falls within my platform of accessibility, right? Getting from point A to point B, having access, it's vital. So our infrastructure shouldn't just be roads. Obviously, that's an important component of it. But infrastructure has to be working with state organizations to make sure that we're not eliminating bus routes that impact someone's ability to get to work on time. It means collaborating with different organizations to make Lynn work in business communities, like the Lynn Area Chamber of Commerce, and other organizations like that, like the North Shore Business Association. It's like looking at the roads that we have and where they lead, like Washington Street. Washington Street leads to the beach. That street should be something completely different, like in most cities. And then we have streets like Franklin Street that lead to the business and the commons. We need to utilize these areas and make them a place that's walkable, a place where businesses can get different clientele. Again, our small businesses have to worry about paying payroll week to week. I'm the only small business owner here, and I know how that feels. It's tough. When we don't have that disposable income like our neighboring towns and cities have, it's a strain on your business. You have to work 5 times harder. And we need to make sure that City Hall is working for these small businesses, making it not harder, but smarter to do business here in the city. I've heard way too many times, and even just recently, I was in Boston and someone said that they were trying to bring free masks and sanitizer and everything to the city, and the city said no. And she said it's weird because other places in the state allow us to come in. And it's unfortunate, but there are best practices that are out there, right? But for some reason, we have the Lynn way, which can be completely contradictory to the best practices. We have to break through that old cycle of doing business here in the city. So infrastructure is vital. It gets people to where they need to be. We're talking about seniors being able to walk around the city and not fall because of an uneven sidewalk or a sidewalk that's too high and you're going to fall flat on your face into the road. We're talking about infrastructure for our kids to be able to commute and do things here in the city. I know that we have the community path, which has been great. But we have to do better with the infrastructure that we have here in the city. We have way too many dangerous intersections, and I know we have a plan to fix those. But for the time being, we need to do something. And I know that we're going to say that we don't have enough police to do the basic things. So how are we going to have those there directing traffic to make sure that people can get from point A to point B safely? But we have to look into those things. It's vital. Our infrastructure is our technology and the internet. Not every family has access to internet. I was shocked to see that Arlington had the ability to get Verizon on Linfield Street instead of Comcast. The infrastructure has to include the layers of things that can connect people to careers, to education, and to business, because those are vital. So infrastructure is a thing that we need to work on. And again, potholes are such a small thing, but a lot of people have issues with those because it impacts their vehicles and getting from point A to point B in a way that it makes sense. But infrastructure is such a big thing that we need to work on. And it's only fair. I say that us as taxpayers, we deserve a return on our investment. Our investment is our taxes. So let our city stop reflecting what we're paying into. Thank you.
Moving on to Jerry Nicholson. Same question. 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. So, absolutely, the most obvious thing going around the city is the condition of our streets and our sidewalks. They need to be upgraded. It's just years and years of deferred maintenance. And, the good news is that hopefully we're going to have the opportunity with some of the stimulus money that's coming. And we need to make the most of that opportunity, and we need to fix our streets. We need to fix our sidewalks. We need to upgrade the city's buildings and equipment. We talked earlier about the need for new schools. We need new city buildings as well. Fire department, there's broad public safety equipment and infrastructure needs that we need to work on. Another area of infrastructure that I think is really important for us is the city's parks and playgrounds. Upgrading the parks, having a resource or a place for people to go, it's a quality of life issue for our residents. It's what people are looking for in a community. Thinking about the city's parks and natural resources, another important infrastructure investment that we need to make is that we finally need to clean up Kings Beach. It's just unacceptable that we have a beach on our shores, given that the rest of Massachusetts has been cleaned up and we have the last dirty beach. It needs to be upgraded, and that's an infrastructure project that's going to be required. Another important infrastructure needs is with our water and sewer. We see what happens when it rains, and we're seeing more of those storms. That's an infrastructure problem that we need to fix. We need to make those investments. Those investments are ongoing. We're making progress, and the good news is we're going to have the opportunity to continue to do that. There's improvements in basic city services that we need to make as part of our infrastructure. Another one that's obvious when we go around the city is the trash and litter rollers. And that we just need to make those investments to allow us to keep the city clean. That includes additional equipment where necessary. Another very important infrastructure need along the lines of the services that the city provides is that we need a permanent senior center. A city of our size absolutely deserves a senior center, and there should be a long-term permanent investment in order to have a senior center. So, you know, these are some of the obvious examples. What we need to be able to do is run a real process to get community input, to have that public participation in the direction that we're going to take these infrastructure funds. Because we do have this opportunity. This is something that is going to be a positive for the city, and the next mayor needs to make the most of that opportunity. That public investment in infrastructure needs to go hand in hand with the planning that we're doing for private development. Because private development puts asks on our city's infrastructure. And it requires thoughtful, careful planning to make sure that the development that we're hoping for is integrated into the city. And that the developments interact with each other, that the impacts on traffic, on parking, on the environment are factored into the projects. And that's all part of the infrastructure conversation in the city. And that kind of planning is absolutely crucial to make the most of that opportunity that we have for private sector investment, to make sure that it's partnered with our public investment, the infrastructure investments that we're going to be in a position to make. This would absolutely be helped if the city had a comprehensive plan, a master plan. And you know, this is something that other communities do. It's not required in Massachusetts to have it, but a lot of communities in Massachusetts do. We now have a planning department. We should be fully utilizing this planning department. And we should be making those plans, because if we want the kinds of developments that are really going to activate the city, they're going to benefit all the residents because they work well with one another. The investments we're making in this part of the city work well with the part of the city that's next door. We need to have a comprehensive master plan. And that's something we're going to have the opportunity to do over the next couple of years. And you know, we're going to have to be making investments in infrastructure along the way, in part because we are going to be having these opportunities through the state and federal money. And you know, it needs to be a top priority. But the key is that the best thing that local government can do to set the table for growth is to get the basics right.
Time.
That includes infrastructure. Thank you.
Darren's here, same question, 5 minutes.
So we have over $500 million worth of infrastructure that needs to be repaired in the city of Lynn, whether it be buildings, public buildings, schools, roadways. We also have to do a better job when utility companies come into the city and they dig up our roads to repair their pipes, whether it be the gas company, whether it be the cable companies, or even our water and sewer department. I think the DPW should create its own concrete plant on their facilities, and they should be the ones that anytime a utility comes into the city, they have to get permission and put up money so we can make the repairs the proper way to do the roadways, the sidewalks. Because a lot of times what they do is they just put fill back in the road, and they don't compact it, they don't infrared the hot top. So within 6 months or a year, that's what's causing all the potholes. It's not just the winter time. Sidewalks, when a sidewalk is ripped out, it should be replaced the same way, whether it be concrete or hot top. Our parks, we need to do a better job of maintaining our parks. We absolutely do need to do a better job managing our roads in the city. Right now, we have a grant of about $60 million that's coming in to Lynn to redo all the intersections, the sidewalk and the roadway on Weston Ave, on Essex Street, and on Chatham Street as well. Our budget for the city of Lynn is roughly, for this year, is a little more than $410 million. In tax revenue alone, we only bring in about $160 million. So there's not a lot of money to play with for infrastructure. So what we need to do is we have to manage our roadways in a better way, what's underground, whether it be water and sewer. 50% of our city is below sea level. That's part of the problem right there. So it's been talked about for years to build a storage tank somewhere on the east side of the city and on the west side of the city, so when we have these 100-year storms, which we're getting 1 or 2 a year now, that we have somewhere to put the water. The reason why down on Eastern Ave, the outflow pipe, there's so much bacteria that's going in there is because our system just can't handle the flow. So there is a pretty cheap way to fix it, and people laughed at me when I said it a couple of weeks ago. Chlorine. You can put chlorine inside that pipe, and by the time the water gets from where the chlorine is to the opening of the outflow pipe, it's already dispersed inside. It will not contaminate the beach, it will not contaminate the water, it will not kill any animals in the ocean. So we have to think way out of the box when it comes to our infrastructure. We took over the lights on the light poles in the city. We roughly save our city about $4 million a year because we own the lights. So there's many things that we can do. We can become a green city. That will help with our infrastructure. But our parks, the condition of our parks is just unacceptable. And it's the mayor that sets the budget, and it's the mayor that works in the community with all the different coalitions and groups that are out there, and has to bring them in to find out exactly what's going on in each neighborhood. Because every neighborhood has its own issues and problems. Whether it be because of roads, sidewalks, light poles. Look at how many double light poles there are in the city. We got to get on top of National Grid and Comcast and Verizon and get them to remove those poles. Litter, everywhere you look, is a big problem. We have to do a better job with our recycling. But rather than every other week, it should be every week. And we should do dumpster days throughout the entire city. There's so many things that we could be doing, and with community involvement. And I would hold monthly meetings with all the players in the city, whether they be the businesses, whether they be neighborhood, community groups, little leagues, all sports groups that are here, including all the nonprofits, at least once a month. Sit and listen to what all their concerns are.
Fine.
And what we can do to fix our problems in our city. Thank you.
Michael, 2 minutes.
Thank you. And just my response to Mr. Sader is, like you said at the beginning, you've been the only one in the position to do these things. So why haven't they been done? I think it's important to focus on the fact that there are 2 things that we're lacking: enforcement and pushback. The issues that we have in Ward 1 on Linfield Street is that they stopped allowing trucks to go down Walnut Street. So they're going down Linfield Street constantly. The road is horrible. The beach, there's not supposed to be any trucks that drive down the beach, but you see it happen. There's no enforcement. We have to hold, like Mr. Sear said, people accountable. The state, the private industries that come here and do these things, and just continuously just say, hey, we need to say we're tired of getting the crap into the stick, okay? We're tired here in Lynn. We need to speak up and use our voice. So enforcement, yes, enforce on the beach so the trucks aren't driving down. Let's talk to the state about these constant trucks driving on Linfield Street, just causing houses to shake. My office shakes. And the gas pipes are so close to the
30
street.
seconds.
It's dangerous. We have to do something about enforcement and pushback. We have to do something about our parks. Have you been to Barry Park when it rains? You can't even go to the park. It's flooded. We're building these new things in places they shouldn't be built. We have to be smart about what we're putting our money towards, and we have to fix the issues that we have had for way too long. Thank you.
Darren, 2 minutes.
Thank you. No one's preventing trucks from going down Walnut Street and diverting them onto Linfield Street. You can't do that. They're public roads. As for trucks that are driving up and down Linshore Drive, the state is the ones that stop them, and they do enforce it. Because Councilor Calucci and myself are constantly on the phone with the state police asking them to do it. Barry Park, it's below sea level. I'm not saying that's an excuse or a reason why it's flooding, but we're getting these 100-year storms. We've had 20 inches of rain in Lynn in the last 2 months. That's more than we get in an entire year. That's unbelievable. 2 years ago, we had 7 inches of rain that fell in 1 hour. Our city, 50% of it is below sea level. And what have I done to try to improve? Worked on getting $50 million to come in, over $50 million, to repair Western Ave, Essex Street, and Chatham Street. Put money in all of our parks. Not as much as we'd like to, but as I said earlier, we only bring in $160 million in tax revenue. So the building that's been going on in the last 5.5 years since I become council president has brought $12 million in building permits alone. It's close to $1 billion worth of building going on in the city of Lynn right now, which is going to create tax revenue, which is going to increase the money coming in, so we can start fixing some of these things that we're talking about up there. And that's where my experience comes in. My experience also comes in that a lot of it has to do with the mayor and the decisions that's made in the mayor's office.
I'm going to give 2 minutes to Jared.
Thank you. Absolutely, growth is going to create tax revenue that's going to allow us to make investments in our city's infrastructure. But we need to have higher expectations for growth. It's not just about the tax revenue. It's about what it's doing for the people of Lynn. So, we were talking about private development and housing. That's where the conversation comes in about affordable housing. We had that conversation. We're talking, we need to be having a conversation about what we're asking of developers earlier in the process about how their development is going to fit into the neighborhoods, the traffic, the parking, the environment. We need to think about the actual work on those projects and how it's going to benefit Lynn workers. Thinking about local hiring. Thinking about how it's going to include those residents, because development should be a win for the developer, it should be a win for the city, and it should be a win for the people of Lynn.
Michael, 2 minutes. Did you want it?
If they don't want it.
Do you want to? If we can move on to the next question, if you don't want to.
No, what Jared said is pretty spot on with regards to what development has to look like in our city and how it has to impact the residents. What we're talking about, and I know Darren will say this, that people are going to walk away if we say, hey, you need to have a public benefit. A portion of your money has to go to public safety. And guess what? The next person's going to come.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of land out there. That's one unique characteristic of property. There's no two properties alike. And guess what? Lynn has amazing amenities if we really put an effort into it. There's not a lot of cities that have the Lynn Woods or what's like it. The beach, the multiple ponds. the green spaces. There's a lot of things we should be proud about. I used to go, my grandma used to take me to do picnics on the commons. It was a wonderful experience. My great-granddad used to take me fishing on Flax Pond. There were things to do. That's why activities is such a huge platform of my campaign and how it will be even a component to how I run the city as mayor. It's vital. The quality of life in Lynn
30 seconds.
has to be looked at again. Because we can do better. We have to do better. Thank you.
I'm going to move on to the last question. This is a submitted question about business. Jerry Nicholson.
As a candidate, will you promote local businesses given Lynn has one of the highest tax rates for commercial property in the Commonwealth? 5 minutes.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think supporting local businesses is a key strategy for inclusive growth. To make sure that the growth benefits people here now, supporting local businesses. So, this is something I have a lot of experience working with small businesses. I got started in Lynn, working in legal aid, working with low-income entrepreneurs and small businesses. In my current job as a law professor in Northeastern, I run a clinic that provides free legal help to small businesses, and have done work with Boston, work with Lynn. This is what I did during the pandemic, providing, supervising my students, providing free legal help to small businesses with questions during the pandemic on things like reopening, dealing with their lease, getting the financial assistance that they need. So this is absolutely something that's really important to me and something that the city can do more on. Absolutely should be a priority for making sure that the growth that we're all talking about, that we all hope is coming to the city, benefits the people here now. Local businesses is a great way to do that. So one part of that is involving businesses earlier and more often in planning. And that includes the big plans that we have for the downtown, for the waterfront, but also out in the neighborhoods, where the small businesses are making those neighborhoods feel like a community. And bringing them in, involving them. I think another area for that kind of collaboration and that support is with a particular type of small business, multi-service businesses. You see them on street corners all over the city. A lot of them are working with particular immigrant communities that they serve. And I think it's a great opportunity for collaboration, for the city to be able to reach some of those communities that are harder to reach. One of the issues we saw in the pandemic is that how those barriers can create problems for us all. And building relationships with multi-service business owners is another way to reach out to the communities and support local entrepreneurs. Because those multi-service businesses, they themselves are entrepreneurs. Another opportunity to support local businesses that I would be really excited about is a shared commercial kitchen. So this would be an opportunity for businesses in Lynn that want to try restaurants, try some kind of food business, but struggle to get off the ground because it's hard to find commercial cooking space. And this is something that other communities have tried, including Lawrence, and is a great way to take advantage of the diverse cuisine that is available and that people have access to, people from all over the world, and create good, successful local businesses in the process. And to do it in partnership with local institutions like North Shore Community College and Entrepreneurship for All that works with small businesses, helps a lot of small businesses. So I think that's absolutely an area that we could be doing more. I think there's more that we could be doing around financing, around creating opportunities, particularly for new businesses, to be able to make it easier to get the kind of financing that you need to start. It's hard to get those first loans without a credit history. And this is another area where other cities have made progress. Lowell, Lawrence, Salem, setting up collaboration among local banks to create these lending pools where the risk is shared because the new businesses are riskier loans, and to make it easier to be able to start those businesses and get the capital that you need to be able to do business. A lot of this requires sustained outreach. Opening communication channels. And particularly in Lynn, that means overcoming barriers of language and sometimes the technology. We saw the impact of the digital divide last year more than ever in remote learning for students, but also for businesses. Think about those businesses that were able to pivot most quickly onto Toast or onto the digital platforms so they could sell their menu online. And think of the businesses that didn't have those digital capabilities and the revenue that they missed out on because they weren't able to make that switch quickly. The city should be involved in bringing those businesses in. And part of that is digital equity, getting people the training, the access they need to be able to get online, get their businesses online, and also making the city able to do business in different languages more easily. We're proud of the diversity that we have. I know we are. But for us to truly honor that diversity, we need to make everybody feel included and have that access that we know people need in order to be able to take advantage of some of the programs that we have. So yes, I think small businesses are an important part of the future of Lynn, will be priority for my administration as mayor. Thank you.
Darren's here, same question, 5 minutes.
Small businesses are the backbone of the city, and a perfect example of what's been going on for the last few years is the auditorium. So every time there's a show, you roughly have between 1,800 and 2,200 people that come into the downtown area that frequent all the small businesses, all the small restaurants. It's bringing people in from other communities. I also think that if we bring in positive development with people with disposable incomes into the downtown area, that would support the local businesses down there. People that are going in frequently spending their money. I think the city should have a better relationship through community development into our local businesses. All the mom-and-pop stores that are here in the city, that thrive all the time with sub shops, or the little grocery stores, they play a vital role to everybody. But if you go down Market Street, a lot of people don't even know this, but you can buy a vacuum cleaner down there, and a vacuum cleaner that's been in business for like 50 years. Simmons has been in business for, I don't know, probably 100 years. People from all over come down there and shop. Union Street is thriving again. There's probably about, I don't know, 50 different little businesses that are down there that are happening. What we got to do is make people in our own city realize that these businesses are down there and get them to frequent the businesses to support them. We absolutely do have opportunities. The Lynnway, I say this all the time, that's the future industry of the city of Lynn, where the GE used to be what provided jobs for everybody. You're talking about trades. You're talking about architects and engineers and all kinds of people that can be put to work making good money. I've been working with one of the trades unions about setting up an apprentice program and coming up with a way to get all the trades unions together with all the possible, the landowners and the developers that are looking to come into the city and spend a few days so they can all get to know each other and work with each other. The only way, again, to solve the problem with affordable housing in the city of Lynn is by creating better jobs, higher paying jobs. And there's not going to be no real industry that's going to come into Lynn unless the possibility of life science. Because the reason why a lot of industry has left the city is because of how long it takes to get from point A to point B, and point B being the outer edge of the city. Routes 128, Routes 193, 495. That's why they've left. So the businesses that are here in the city, we have to find a better way of supporting them. Whether it be through City Hall, or by making people more aware of what the advantages are by shopping in the downtown area and frequenting those businesses. Thank you.
Michael Saderway, same question, 5 minutes.
Thank you. We need a mayor that's proud and actually supports local businesses. We need someone in there that will bring them to the table. It's vital to hear the voices of the small businesses. That's why I say every resident, every ward, and every business. We should not be in the business of picking the winners and the losers here in the city. And I'll tell you, we have 2,000 small businesses here in the city, which is substantial. It's vital to have someone with a small business experience. 15 years I've had a small business here in the city. And when my time on the school committee, if I saw that something was a little too difficult, or there were yellow or red tape that didn't need to be there, I would talk to the superintendent and speak about the experiences that I had, and would suggest changes, or say maybe we should do things a little different. Because when I hear we've always done it this way, that's not always a good response. So when Mr. Nicholson came here 6 years ago to start the Scadden Fellowship to work with small businesses, he worked with City Hall. And he saw the challenges that these small businesses had. But what feedback did he give that to the City Hall to help fix these things for the next business? That's what's equity. Equity is making it so everyone has the opportunity. So if you've experienced the shortfalls of the city, what did you say to help correct those? That's what's important. And then I met with Mike Procopio to tell him about my displeasure of him not using union labor or local businesses. And you know what I asked him? I said, why didn't you use full color for the things around the building, the signage and whatnot? He had no clue who full color was. Your alarm system, who do you have? Not Wayne Alarm, didn't know who that was. I see a lot of glass. Do you use New England Glass Company? No, we use Middlesex. No clue as to what businesses were here. That's an issue. There should be a list that's given to any developer that has interest in doing business in our city. We're talking about land jobs. It's vital. So I was shocked by that experience and the responses that I got from my Procopio. And I talked about it. We have one library. One. We used to have neighborhood libraries. Businesses around the city could go and use the internet to do the things that Jared talked about. Now, somehow they have to get downtown to go to the library. City Hall should have a room with forms and information for our businesses. City Hall needs to be restructured for small businesses to be able to flourish in our city. It's vital. When I talk to small businesses that unfortunately get into trouble because of a mishap, they don't realize that they have to file an annual report with the Secretary of State. And if you don't for 2 consecutive years, guess what? Your corporation is dissolved. So you know where that liability lies? With you. These are easy things to let our business community know. And we're not sharing it. It flabbergasts me that we're in such an important role in the city, that we're not sharing things with businesses that impact our residents and the local economy. We can do better. And just like we talked about earlier, having a senior center, we need to have transportation for our seniors to get to these small businesses. We need to push back with the MBTA to make sure they're not taking away spots and stops that are very important to local businesses. It's vital to communicate and meet with and give a voice to the small businesses so they can have a fighting chance. Because they deserve one. Thank you.
We're not going to have rebuttals on this question. We're just going to move on to closing statements. We're running low on time. So we're going to start the reverse order of opening. Jerry Nicholson, you have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you again to the Daily Item for having us tonight, and to all of you for being here. Again, I'm Jared Nicholson, and I am running for mayor to push for growth that benefits the whole city. And building that kind of inclusive growth over the course of this campaign has been a wonderful opportunity to hear from voters, to hear from residents, to hear from businesses, to work on putting that vision together in collaboration with everybody. And a big part of that is about better schools, including the need for new schools that you heard about tonight. A big part of that is better housing and giving the opportunity for the people that build this city to be able to stay and participate in the growth that we hope is coming. It's about better jobs, like we just talked about, supporting small businesses as a strategy for inclusive growth. It's about workforce development and giving people opportunities to get into higher paying jobs. And working with developers, with unions, with educational institutions, with workforce development organizations to build those pathways so that we are making sure that those opportunities are created. It's about better infrastructure. We listed a whole number of priorities and are really going to have that opportunity in the next couple of years, that we need to be able to put our best foot forward to make the most of that opportunity. And it's about more peace in the community, because peace is just a precondition for opportunity. And this kind of growth, it needs to fit into a broader blueprint. And that blueprint needs to be built with real community input. Which means first you have to value community input as a priority. You have to seek it out, and you have to listen to it. And reflect it in the city's thinking. That's how to build a lasting blueprint. That's how to build a blueprint that gets buy-in from the community, that sets the table for the growth that we're looking for. Growth whose whole is greater than the sum of its parts, because we're being thoughtful about planning for what it's going to look like. And most of all, when I think about the future of the city, I think about my young son, Henry. And I want Lynn to be a place that prepares him to go anywhere and inspires him to love it here. The way we do. The way we do in deciding to raise our family here and become a part of this community that we love so dearly. Thank you again for this opportunity. I ask for your vote September 14th and November 2nd. Thank you.
Saderway, 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
Thank you. So my name is Michael Saderway. Thank you for coming out today. Again, like I said, I attended this school, and right after 9/11, my life took a turn. 16 years old, I suffered homelessness. I had nowhere to go but to go stay with my mother, who was going through a rehab program at Project Hope on Rogers Ave. I had to work 3 jobs at the age of 16. I had to be and grow up at a very young age. It got to a point where I hadn't lived in Florida for 2 years. I lived in Hollywood, Florida for 2 years, finished high school down there. Moved back up here to be with my family, because that was a missing piece. By 1 year out of high school, I got a promotion at a law firm that I was working at as a paralegal. Became a supervisor, one of the youngest in the history. A year later, I bought my first multifamily at the age of 21. 5 years from homeless to a home buyer. It's possible. We need someone as mayor that can tell these stories to our young families, to our struggling parents, that there is the ability to break the cycle. It's vital. I opened up my first company 15 years ago. Still have it. I've been able to work for myself in a successful way for 15 years. At the age of 19, working as a supervisor at that law firm, 100 people working there. I had to learn what a budget was. Working on the school committee, half of the city's budget is on the school side. Have experienced it too. I've advocated in this city for 26 years, since I was 11 years old, volunteering. At the age of 14, with everything going on in my life, I was awarded by the mayor the Citizenship and Community Service Award because of the work I did in the city. He's talking about blueprints. I painted those yellow footsteps that are near the Lynn Museum. This is my home. This is where my family lives. It's where your family lives. I have the background, the knowledge, and the experience to be your mayor on day one. To bring long-term growth, to bring long-term planning, to continue to give voices to those that feel like they're voiceless. I had someone cut my ear last month. He couldn't believe that I was talking to him because I was running for mayor. Everyone has value. Everyone has something to offer. Why do I have to say that? I will be the mayor that will be a voice for every ward, every resident, and every business. Because that's what we need at this very moment. We need it now. We have $180 million coming into our city. This will be the change maker. Who do you want leading that change? It's important to vote on September 14th. Because one of us is out. It's vital. Your voice matters. I want to take my experience of advocating for the special needs students in our school district to advocate for you. I want to take my experience of being a business owner and knowing the importance of making payroll and making sure your employees have good benefits and a place to work to City Hall. I want to take my experience of being a resident in the city for 35 years to City Hall. And I need your help to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've lived in Lynn for 62 years, my entire life. My son's graduated from A1 school. My mother went to A1 school. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, as well as I did. I graduated from Lynn Tech. My wife graduated from class school. My sons both graduated from English. I want all the same things everybody else wants in the city. Safe roads, safe neighborhoods, better schools. I'd love to say that we're going to lower your taxes, but that's not going to happen. Not at all. The reason why it's so expensive to live here is because it's more expensive to live in other communities. And we do an awful lot for the people that live here. And as I said earlier, I do have the experience of working in the mayor's office for 3 years. I have the experience of being a ward council, taking care of my ward. What have I done to change things? I led the charge to build Marshall Middle School. I led the charge to provide 1,000 boxes of food to seniors during the pandemic, and to provide another 500 boxes of food to anybody that walked up to the door that needed it. We created over 10 million meals. I led that charge. I don't go around bragging about all the things that I do because I wasn't brought up that way. But I chose to live here in the city and I chose to contribute. I love this city. Wherever you go, I talk about the family of Lynn. It's never mattered to me about your nationality or the color of your skin, your religion, or whether you're gay or straight. If it did, I probably wouldn't live there. I've been around it my entire life. I had the same experiences that Michael has and that Jared has, except I've lived here longer. And I've worked longer in City Hall. I've seen how the city has evolved and how it's changed. And every 10 or 15 years, you have to change your way of thinking. You can't just look at City Hall and say you're going to walk in there and you're gonna change the way business is done. I've tried that. I said the exact same thing when I first ran. And I've been trying to do it every day since. I eat, I sleep, and I breathe lead. I've always been there for my constituents. I've been there for my friends and my family in this city. And wherever I go, I talk about Lynn and I brag about it. And people always take a step back when they ask me, where are you from? And I say, Lynn. I'm out there during a storm, whether it's snow, rain, hurricane, it doesn't matter. Pumping out people's cellars, plowing people's roads. I built relationships throughout the city. Every single neighborhood has its own issues. And I want to bring them in to sit and discuss those issues, to sit at the table. I've always given people the opportunity. My door as council president and as a ward council has always been open to everybody. Unfortunately, sometimes people don't like hearing what I've got to say, so they don't want to sit at the table. But I'm a firm believer in the word compromise. I look at 20, 30, 40% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And even if we don't agree politically, I still would represent you. I still would give you the opportunity to be able to either try to change my mind, and I'm just asking for the same respect. As I said, I want the same things that everybody else does. A safe place to live, a great place to raise my kids. I want my kids to have a great place to raise their kids. I want the best school system in the whole state right here in our city. I want our businesses to thrive. And I don't want there to be a need for affordable housing. Unfortunately, there is. And I will strive to fix that. It won't happen overnight. I am 100% in favor of affordable housing. Affordable housing to me is where you can afford to live. Everybody deserves a place to live that they can afford. And that's what I will work towards. So please, I'm asking for your vote on September 14th. Thank you.
Thank you for attending tonight's debate. Please visit the city website for voting information, and remember the preliminary election is next Tuesday, September 14th. Good night.